The black holes. A swirl in a sink is a vortex with a hole in the middle. A whirlpool in a lake is a vortex with a hole in the middle. A cyclone in the atmosphere is a vortex with a hole in the middle. A black hole in the cosmos is a vortex with a hole in the middle. Swirl, whirlpool, and cyclones are whirling flows of fluids towards a well. The similitude of black hole with all these flows makes evident that a black hole is the result of flowing fluid, of a fluid ether. This ether could not disappear in the hole so that it shall condense in matter. Perfect fluid. As an implementation of Hamilton's principle, the flows of a fluid towards a well is not stable. They rotate. This is what is evident in water and in the air, but also shall apply to the ether in the cosmos. These whirls in perfect fluid have a tangential velocity proportional to the inverse of the distance to the center of the well. This is result of the Lagrange equation. Fluid with angular momentum. This not the case of Kepler laws. The tangential speed should be proportional to the inverse of the square root of the distance. The Lagrange equation is related to energy, so that there is a very simple explanation. If the particles of the ether in the cosmos are animated not only of a linear Brownian motion, but also of an angular momentum, then the equipartition principle doubles exactly the term of the energy in the Lagrange equation, whose solution is then exactly a tangential speed proportional to the inverse of the square root of the distance to the center of the well. Galaxies. However, in perfect fluid, the rotation of the fluid in the whirl compensates exactly the rotation around themselves of the fluid particles. This flow is irrotational. This is not the case in the ether. The energy term is doubled. The whirl rotation requires an energy input. It can only come from the angular momentum of particles of ether. The rotation of the whirl absorbs a part of the angular momentum of the particles of space, so that galaxies do not comply with the Kepler law. Their size leads to a significant decrease of the angular momentum available in approaching their eye. The flow of the ether, when approaching the eye of the galaxies, thus occurs without angular moment, as for the perfect fluids. The tangential speed changes from 1 on square root of r to 1 on r as by the red curve. It varies very little over a long distance. There is no need for dark matter. Vortices with holes. When the rotation of the vortex is fast enough, a hole appears in water at the center of the well. This is a result of the surface pressure drop associated to the increase of the rotation speed. This is a direct implementation of the Bernoulli's equation. This is also the case in the atmosphere. The central part of the vortex is free of clouds, free of water drops. This is very clearly shown from spatial photos. The same shall apply in the ether filling the cosmos. Vortices shall appear where ether is condensing. And if there are vortices, it means that there is condensation. Ether is condensing in the galaxies. Galaxies are thus wide vortices dragging stars around their eye. Black holes. And at the center of the galactic vortex a hole may appear if the rotation speed of the vortex is large enough. This hole is not free of ether exactly like the vortex in the atmosphere is not free of air. The hole of galaxies is free of matter, free of atoms, so that it appears to be black because there is no emission of light when there are no atoms. This is the black hole. The result is that it could happen that a galaxy located far away beyond a black hole could be observed within the black hole. The polarisation of the light. The angular momentum of the particles of space has an interesting consequence. Upon impact of two of these particles, momentum is transmitted according to the laws of Descartes. This transmission occurs by elastic deformation of the particles of space. The elastic deformation of the particles of space prevents slippage of the particles on one another as a result of the flattening of the parts in contact. During the oscillations of the electrons, they transmit not only their linear momentum to the particles of space, but also their angular momentum. The angular momentum can only be transmitted transversely. This feature explains the transverse properties of light. Each wave train is polarized, in the direction of the angular momentum of electron emitters. This feature explains also why the spiral trajectories appear on the black hole photo, in polarized light.